Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you do not miss any video lesson from RAU'S IAS.
Hello and welcome to Daily Prelims Practice, where we take up the questions from the Hindu and Indian Express and curate them as per the demands of Civil Services Prelims Examination. The topic for today's discussion are listed on your screen. Now moving to the first article of the day that has featured in the Indian Express, it basically talks about the mutual fund SIP inflows that have reached a new high of 12,000 crores. Now UPSC previously has asked questions related to capital market and also that of money market, and thus this region becomes important for us. The practice question says, consider the following statements related to capital market and money market. The first statement here is, unlike capital market, money market is used for short-term borrowing and lending operation. Now this statement is correct. The second statement says, corporate bonds are money market instruments in India. Now this statement is wrong. The third statement here is, both capital market and money market are entirely regulated by SEBI. Now this statement is also wrong. So as per the demand of the question, the correct code will be option A, that is 1 only. To understand this question, we have to refer to the infographic. The infographic tells the difference between the capital and the money market instrument. Capital market are the instruments whose duration is more than 1 year, and money market are the instruments where the duration is less from 1 day to 1 year. Instruments like share, bonds, debenture, exchange traded funds are instruments of the capital market, which corresponds to statement 2 of our given question. On the flip side, commercial paper, certificate of deposit, T-bills, cash management bills, market repos are instruments of money market. Now, the risk associated with the capital market is higher when compared with the money market. The liquidity, on the other hand, of capital market is lower and that of money market is higher. And coming to the last segment of regulation, SEBI entirely regulates the capital market, whereas the money market is regulated by RBI and SEBI. And this corresponds to the third statement where it was written that they are entirely regulated by SEBI. So coming back to the question, now it is clear why statement 2 and 3 were wrong. Moving to the next article that has featured in the Indian Express, basically talks about Ujjain's Mahakal Mandir. Now Ujjain Mahakal Mandir is going for an expansion and beautification wherein the Mahakal Mandir Parisar will be expanded and the function will be inaugurated by Prime Minister Modi. Now, Mahakal Mandir is a part of 12 Jyotirlingas. UPSC in the previous year under the Art and Culture section has asked questions related to the temple architecture and its various aspects, and such a question was seen in 2014. UPSC in the year 2022 has also asked questions related to the temples. So this area becomes important for us from the perspective of prelims. The practice question says, consider the following pair. The first pair is Mallikarjun, which is matched with Sri Salem in Andhra Pradesh. Now this pair is correct. The second pair given here is Vaidyanath matched with Pune, Maharashtra. Now this pair is wrong. The third pair given here is Bhima Shankar matched with Deogarh in Jharkhand. Now this pair is wrong. The fourth pair is Krishneshwar of Aurangabad, Maharashtra, and this pair is correct. The question further says, choose the correct code, and as only 2 pairs are correct, the correct option will be option B. Now coming back to the question, Vaidyanath Jyotirlinga was incorrectly matched in Pune, meaning thereby Vaidyanath is situated in Deogarh, Jharkhand. And Bhima Shankar was also incorrectly matched, wherein it lies in the Pune district of Maharashtra. Moving on to the next article, it talks about the collegium system and basically the Supreme Court. Now, in our previous sessions of daily prelims practice, we have already discussed the collegium system in detail. We'll try to understand what other questions can be framed from the Supreme Court. Our Supreme Court has been a favorite topic for the UPSC under the Polity section, and questions have been repeatedly asked, and it was also seen in the year 2014. The practice question says, consider the following statements regarding Supreme Court of India. The first statement here is, the jurisdiction of Supreme Court is wider than that of Federal Court of India. Now this statement is correct, as the Supreme Court has even replaced the Privy Council that was existent before India got independence. The second statement says, the Chief Justice decide the cases to be allocated to the benches. Now this statement is correct, as be it the Chief Justice of India or Chief Justice of any High Court, it is he or she who heads the administrative sides, and this includes the allocation of matters before the judges. Also, according to the Supreme Court rules and procedure, it expressly states that the registrar shall prepare roster under the directions of Chief Justice of India, and all such power, duties and function of registrar are subject to any further or general orders of the Chief Justice of India. The third statement here says, both Supreme Court and High Court have original and exclusive jurisdiction. Now this statement is wrong, as though both Supreme Court and High Court have the original jurisdiction. It is only the Supreme Court that has the exclusive jurisdiction in matters related to dispute between the center and one or more state. Secondly, the center in any of the states on one side and one or more states on the other side. And thirdly, the dispute between two or more states. Here the word exclusive means that no other court can decide such disputes, and original means the power to hear such disputes in the first instance and not by the way of appeal. The fourth statement here says, a private citizen can also file a suit against the central and the state government under the original exclusive jurisdiction. Now this statement is again wrong, as the original exclusive jurisdiction has two key points that need to be understood. The first is, the dispute must involve a question of law or fact on which the existence legal right depends. Thus, the questions of political natures are not entertained under this. Secondly, any suit brought before the Supreme Court by a private citizen against the center or state cannot be entertained under this, that is, exclusive original jurisdiction. The question further says, which of the following statements are incorrect, and as we can see, statement 3 and 4 are incorrect. So the correct code for the given question will be option C. Moving on to the next article that has featured in the Hindu, it talks about the launch of 24/7 tele-mental health service. Now UPSC previously has asked questions which were one-liners and very straight to the topic, and such a question can be expected in the coming prelims. The practice question framed here is, Tele-MANAS was in news recently, and it is related to, as we have already seen, that Tele-MANAS is a helpline to avail mental health assistance during our discussion on the topic. Tele-MANAS is basically a 24/7 mental health assistant helpline. It is launched under the Tele-Mental Health program on the occasion of World Mental Health Day. Tele-MANAS is an initiative of the Health Ministry. The program as of now is launched in 20 states and union territories, and the central government aims to open at least one Tele-MANAS cell in each state and union territory. A toll-free number that is available 24/7 has been set up, allowing the callers to select the language of their choice for availing the service. Now, mental health becomes important because, as per the recent report released by the Lancet, it called for radical action to end stigma and discrimination in mental health. The report indicated that 90% of people who are living with the mental health conditions feel negatively impacted by stigma and discrimination they face. Secondly, mental health problems affect more in children and those who are elderly. Depression and anxiety are the most common mental health problems that is prevalent across the globe. So, this was all regarding the new Tele-MANAS initiative launched by Ministry of Health. Now moving to the next article that has featured in the Hindu, basically talks about the local self-government or the Panchayati Raj institution. Now UPSC under the Polity section has asked questions related to Panchayati Raj system previously also, and such a question was seen in the year 2014. A practice question can be framed in this regard. The practice question says, with reference to the 73rd Amendment Act of 1992, consider the following statement. The first statement is, Gram Sabha is a village assembly consisting of all the registered voters in an area of a panchayat. Now this statement is correct, as Gram Sabha is a body consisting of persons registered in electoral rolls of a village comprised within the area of panchayat at the village level. Further, this body may exercise such powers and functions at the village level as the legislature of a state may determine. The second statement here says the Act provides for reservation of not less than half of the total number of seats for women. Now this statement is incorrect, as the Act provided for reservation of not less than 1/3 of total numbers of seats for women, and this was one of the mandatory provisions that was to be enacted by the states. The third statement here says, in case of dissolution, fresh elections to constitute a panchayat shall be completed before the expiry of period of 6 months from the date of its dissolution. Now this statement is correct. Fresh election to constitute panchayat shall be completed before the expiry of its duration for 5 years, or in the case of dissolution before the expiry of period of 6 months from the date of its dissolution. Another important point here to understand is that where the remainder of the period when the panchayat is dissolved is less than 6 months, it shall not be necessary to hold any election for constituting the new panchayat for such period. The question for this is, which of the statement given above is or are correct, and the correct code for the given statement will be option C, that is only statement 1 and 3 are correct. Moving to the next article that has featured in the Hindu, basically talks about the state of malnourishment in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Now the article also talks about National Family Health Survey. UPSC in the previous year has asked questions related to various surveys, and thus this area becomes important for us. The practice question says, with reference to the National Family Health Survey, consider the following statement. The first statement is, International Institute for Population Sciences is the designated nodal agency which is responsible for providing coordination and technical guidance for the survey. Now this statement is correct, as the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has designated IIPS as the nodal agency responsible for providing coordination and technical guidance for NFHS. Further, the National Family Health Survey is a large-scale, multi-round survey that is conducted in a representative sample of households throughout the India. Another thing to understand here is that NFHS is a collaborative project of International Institute for Population Sciences, that is IIPS, ICF in USA, and East-West Center in Hawaii, US. Moving on to the second statement, it says, according to the NFHS 5, the prevalence of overweight or obesity has increased in most of the states. Now this statement is also correct, because as compared with the NFHS 4, the prevalence of overweight or obesity has increased in most states and UTs. At the national level, it has increased from 21 to 24% among women and from 19 to 23% among men. The question further says, which of the statement given above is or are correct, and the correct code for the given question will be option C. Now moving to the next article that has featured in Hindu and basically talks about the state of Indian prisons and says that they are overburdened. Now UPSC under the Polity section has previously also asked questions related to prisoners and payroll rules. The practice question here says, consider the following statements regarding prisons in India. The first statement here is, the prison statistics of India is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now this statement is wrong, as the prison statistics in India is published by National Crime Record Bureau. The second statement here says, the subject of prison falls under the concurrent list. Now this statement is again wrong, as prisons is a state subject under the state list of the 7th schedule of Constitution of India. The third statement here says, the problem of overcrowding in the jails has worsened in the last decade, and this statement is correct, as the problem of overcrowding of jail has worsened in last decade across the whole of India, wherein the overcrowding has increased from 112% to 136% recently. Further, as a matter of information, among the foreign inmates, Bangladeshi nationals dominate the population in India, and maximum share of foreign inmate population lies with the state of West Bengal. The question further says choose the correct code, and the correct code for the given question will be option C. Moving on to the last question of the day that has featured in the Hindu, it basically talks about the closure of Benami case by the High Court against Satyendra Jain in consonance with the guidelines issued by the Supreme Court. Now UPSC in the previous year has asked question directly on the prohibition of Benami Property Transaction Act. But this area becomes important due to the changes that have been made recently. The practice question says, consider the following statement regarding Benami Transaction Prohibition Amendment Act. The first statement here is, the Act provides definition for property, Benami property, Benamdar and beneficial owner. Now this statement is correct as the Act provides for the key definitions under its ambit. The second statement here says, concerned authorities can initiate or continue proceedings for violation retrospectively also. Now this statement is incorrect as Supreme Court has held this section as unconstitutional on the grounds of being manifestly arbitrary. The Supreme Court also held that the Act, which was amended in 2016, can only be applied prospectively and quashed all the prosecutions or confiscation of proceedings before the amended Act came into the force. Thus, the concerned authorities cannot initiate or continue criminal prosecution or confiscation of proceedings for transactions that were entered into prior to the coming into force of 2016 Act. The question further says, choose the correct code, and the correct code for the given question will be option A. So these were the questions for the day. Stay tuned for more such updates.